how you got hooked. Welcome back. Ready to get started? Today's session is all about introducing you to what led you to the present moment and the real reasons why you started using nicotine. Do you remember the time you started smoking or vaping? Chances are back then you felt independent or even a little bit rebellious. Or maybe you did it just because your friends were smoking and it was something that the cool people did. Now it all sounds a bit silly, doesn't it? Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. First, let's take a moment to remember the time you started smoking or vaping and answer the following questions. Do you remember where and why did you smoke your first cigarette or vape for the first time? How did you get it? Was you offered by a friend or did you find it at home? Did you have any past experiences or exposure to tobacco products before trying them for the first time? Did any of your parents smoke? Did you feel confident or uncertain about your decision to try it out for the first time? How did you feel about yourself while trying it out? What did you think of nicotine products in terms of their supposed benefits or consequences of use before trying them out? Did using a nicotine product for the first time produce a sense of pleasure or satisfaction? Did it make you feel high or euphoric in any way? After your first experience with a nicotine product, did you feel a strong urge to use it again? Did you make the conscious decision to become a user at that moment? How did using a nicotine product for the first time impact your thoughts and emotions at the time? Did it affect your self-image or self-esteem? Did you feel like using nicotine products was a part of your identity or lifestyle? What did your friends or family members tell you about your decision to use nicotine products? Did using a nicotine product for the first time bring brief relief to any challenges you were facing at the time? Now that you've thought about your first encounters with nicotine, you might have noticed that some of those memories are related to other people who have influenced you to try for the first time. This is not coincidental. In fact, it's clear that you, just like any other person who is addicted to nicotine, didn't originally know how to be a smoker. You had to learn. You see, your brain has learned to relate nicotine use with certain situations, emotions, places, or even specific people. Over time, this connection has become a habit that is tough to break. Our brains are wired to learn from our environment and the actions of those around us, and that's a survival mechanism that has evolved over time. Like many others, you may have believed that addiction is just a lack of willpower, but those days are over. The study of the human brain called neuroscience has clearly proven that addiction is not indicative of a weak character or lack of motivation. In reality, addiction is a condition that makes us heavily dependent on a certain substance or behavior. This dependence slowly and methodically narrows the range of things that brings us pleasure and reward. Over time, this chronic dependence compels us to seek out what makes us addicted with ever-growing intensity. As someone who's hooked on nicotine, you might have noticed this in yourself. It's more likely that you smoke or vape more now than when you started, or a reduced level of care about what it does to you. In actuality, your addiction has changed the way your brain works. You see, your brain is like a giant city with lots of streets called neurons that enable the flow of information. This information allows your brain to understand what's happening inside your body and around you, which then drives you to react accordingly. When a neuron wants to send information, it releases a special chemical called a neurotransmitter that sends it to the next neuron. When the neuron transmitter travels to its final destination, it causes changes to happen in your body. If neurons act like streets, and neurotransmitters act like package delivery vans, specific areas in your brain are like neighborhoods of the city. Among other things, these areas are responsible for feelings of pleasure, relaxation, and motivation. When you smoke or vape, a chemical called nicotine enters your bloodstream through your lungs and travels to your brain. When nicotine reaches your brain, the brain confuses it with a certain neurotransmitter naturally found in your body. This is how nicotine gets to hitch a ride through your neurons. This confusion causes the brain to direct nicotine to important areas like the extended amygdala, the prefrontal cortex, and the basal ganglia. But of the three, it's the basal ganglia that gets the most affected by nicotine. What's worse is where the reward mechanism of your brain resides. When nicotine reaches the basal ganglia, it tricks your brain into releasing a chemical called dopamine, making you feel calm and relaxed. This feeling is similar to what you feel after completing a difficult task, and this is what leads to the formation of physical dependence on consuming nicotine. Dopamine is essential for humans because it helps us survive both as individuals and as a species. This chemical